What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com. Here are my DFS picks for MLB Monday, June 27th. These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our new videos. In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for today's MLB slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, we have a 9-game slate tonight, so let's take a look at the pitcher position. I like Pablo Lopez pitching against the St. Louis Cardinals. Pablo Lopez pitches his best ball versus righty batters, only giving up a .636 OPS versus righties. He's facing 5 righties here tonight, and the Cardinals have only hit 6 of his last 30 pitches. That's a 200 batting average. So Pablo Lopez is $10,000 FanDuel salary, $900 less on DraftKings, averaging 34 fantasy points per game on the season. He has an ERA of 2.61, record is 5-3, pitching an average of 92 pitches per game. Vegas thinks this is going to be a low-scoring game. Only 7.5 runs scored in this game. That's their over-under. So I like Pablo Lopez here versus the St. Louis Cardinals. Now I also like Kevin Gausman pitching against the Boston Red Sox. Kevin Gausman only giving up a .565 OPS versus lefties, then a .677 OPS versus righties, facing 4 lefties and 5 righties. And the Red Sox have only hit 32 of his last 148 pitches. That's a .216 batting average and a huge sample size. Kevin Gausman is $9,500 FanDuel salary, $300 more on DraftKings, averaging 34 fantasy points per game on the season. He has an ERA of 3.19, record is 5-6, pitching an average of 90 pitches per game. So I like Kevin Gausman here versus the Boston Red Sox. Okay, let's take a look at the catcher first base position. I like Ryan Mountcastle with a 39% batting advantage over George Kirby. Ryan Mountcastle batting a .771 OPS versus righties. George Kirby pitching his worst ball versus righty batters, 46% worse than his other pitches, giving up a .927 OPS versus righties. Ryan Mountcastle is 0 for 2 versus Kirby. He's $3,300 FanDuel salary, $800 more on DraftKings, averaging 10 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored fantasy points in 4 out of his last 5 games. He has a batting average of .271. So I like Ryan Mountcastle here versus George Kirby. Now I also like Nathaniel Lowe with a 42% batting advantage over a low salary pitcher, Kris Bubic. Nathaniel Lowe, he's batting 7% better versus lefty pitchers, batting a .803 OPS versus lefties. Kris Bubic pitching his worst ball versus lefty batters, 35% worse than his other pitches, giving up a 1.111 OPS versus lefties. Nathaniel Lowe is $2,900 FanDuel salary, only $100 more on DraftKings, averaging 9 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored fantasy points in all 5 of his last games. He has a batting average of .279. So I like Nathaniel Lowe here versus Kris Bubic.
Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching.
If you want to enter the drawing for $25 PayPal,
all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won.
And then we'll send you $25 PayPal.
So it's that easy,
and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video.
So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you.
Okay, let's take a look at the second base position. Here's a value play for you. I like Andre Gimenez batting against Sonny Gray. Andre Gimenez batting a .731 OPS versus righties. Sonny Gray giving up a .662 OPS versus lefties. Andre Gimenez is 3 for 6, batting .500 with a 1.667 OPS versus Gray. One of those hits is a home run, another one is a double. Andre Gimenez is only $2,600 FanDuel salary, $1,600 more on DraftKings, averaging 10 fantasy points per game on the season. And he scored fantasy points in all 5 of his last games. He has a batting average of .318. So I like Andre Gimenez here versus Sonny Gray. I also like Gavin Lux with a 32% batting advantage over a low salary pitcher, Chad Kuhl. Gavin Lux batting 17% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .741 OPS versus righties. Chad Kuhl pitching his worst ball versus lefty batters, 15% worse than his other pitches, giving up a .849 OPS versus lefties. There's no at-bats versus Kuhl yet. Gavin Lux is $3,000 FanDuel salary, $1,100 more on DraftKings, averaging 8 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored fantasy points in all 5 of his last games. He has a batting average of .286. And Vegas thinks this is going to be a high-scoring game. 11.5 runs scored in this game. That's their over-under. So this game could be a good game to stack. So I like Gavin Lux here versus Chad Kuhl. Okay, let's take a look at the third base position. Another value play for you. I like Jake Burger with a 21% batting advantage over Noah Syndergaard. Jake Burger batting 17% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .836 OPS versus righties. Noah Syndergaard giving up a .675 OPS versus righties. There's no at-bats versus Syndergaard yet. Jake Burger only $2,600 FanDuel salary, $1,600 more on DraftKings, averaging 9 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored fantasy points in 4 out of his last 5 games. He has a batting average of .251. So I like Jake Burger here versus Noah Syndergaard. I also like Nolan Arenado, and he's batting against Pablo Lopez. Nolan Arenado batting a .818 OPS versus righties. Pablo Lopez giving up a .636 OPS versus righties. But I like this pick because Nolan Arenado is 4 for 9 with a .444 batting average and a .888 OPS versus Lopez. He's $3,700 FanDuel salary, $2,100 more on DraftKings, averaging 11 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored fantasy points in 4 out of his last 5 games. He has a batting average of .283. So I like Nolan Arenado here versus Pablo Lopez.
Real quick guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, let's take a look at the shortstop position. I like Xander Bogaerts here versus Kevin Gausman. Xander Bogaerts batting a .878 OPS versus righty pitchers. Kevin Gausman giving up a .677 OPS versus righty batters. I like this pick because Xander Bogaerts is 16 for 46. That's a .348 batting average and a .832 OPS versus Gausman. He's 3,400 FanDuel salary, 2,000 more on DraftKings, averaging 11 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored fantasy points in 4 out of his last 5 games. He has a batting average of .330, so I like Xander Bogaerts here versus Kevin Gausman. I also like Corey Seager with a 49% batting advantage over a low-salary pitcher, Kris Bubic. Corey Seager batting 14% better versus lefty pitchers, batting a .853 OPS versus lefties. Kris Bubic pitching his worst ball versus lefty batters, 35% worse than his other pitches, giving up a 1.111 OPS versus lefties. Corey Seager is 1-for-1 versus Bubic. That one hit is for a home run. He's 3,500 FanDuel salary, 2,100 more on DraftKings, averaging 10 fantasy points per game on the season. Now, he only has a batting average of .228, but I love the splits here, so I like Corey Seager here versus Kris Bubic. Okay, moving on to the outfield position. It seems like Mike Trout is in a great spot almost every single day here. So, once again, he's a home run hitter. Mike Trout has a 49% batting advantage over Lucas Giolito. Mike Trout batting 15% better versus righty pitchers, batting a 1.118 OPS versus righties. Lucas Giolito pitching his worst ball versus righty batters, 33% worse than his other pitches, giving up a .920 OPS versus righties. Mike Trout is 2-for-8 versus Giolito. That's a .250 batting average, but he has a 1.087 OPS here because one of those 2 hits is for a home run. He's 4,500 FanDuel salary, 1,800 more on DraftKings, averaging 14 fantasy points per game on the season. And he scored fantasy points in all 5 of his last games. He has a batting average of .291. So I like Mike Trout here versus Lucas Giolito. Now, I also like JD Martinez. Even though he's going up against a good pitcher, Kevin Gausman, he's 6-for-15 versus Gausman, batting .400 with a 1.138 OPS. So if you're not going to play Kevin Gausman, it looks like Xander Bogaerts and JD Martinez are in pretty good spots here versus Gausman. JD Martinez averaging 12 fantasy points per game on the season, scored fantasy points in all 5 of his last games, has a batting average of .329. So I like JD Martinez here versus Kevin Gausman. I also like Taylor Ward. He's in a good spot here with a 22% batting advantage over Lucas Giolito. Taylor Ward batting a .822 OPS versus righties. Lucas Giolito pitching his worst ball versus righty batters, giving up a .920 OPS versus righties. And Taylor Ward is 1-for-3 versus Giolito, That one hit is for a home run. He's 4,000 FanDuel salary, 900 more on DraftKings, averaging 12 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored fantasy points in all 5 of his last games. He has a batting average of .310. So I like Taylor Ward here versus Lucas Giolito. Now, here's a value play for you here. I like Edward Olivers with a 33% batting advantage over Martin Perez. Edward Olivers, he's batting 21% better versus lefty pitchers, batting a .941 OPS versus lefties. Martin Perez pitching his worst ball versus righty batters, 12% worse than his other pitches, giving up a .736 OPS versus righties. Edward Olivers is 1 for 2 versus Perez. Then I like this pick because he's only 2,300 FanDuel salary. He's 1,000 more on DraftKings, averaging 8 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored fantasy points in 4 out of his last 5 games. He has a batting average of .356. So I like Edward Olivers here versus Martin Perez.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.